This land is our land. At the core of the issue, whoever destroys a Jewish life is considered to have destroyed an entire world, and whoever saves a Jewish life is considered to have saved an entire world. In the realm of Jewish thought, this statement is not merely a philosophical or ethical axiom. It is a commandment that cuts to the very essence of existence, breathing life into every moment, demanding its weight to be felt in both the heart and mind. Our tradition is a vast ocean of sacred laws and timeless values, each more precious than gold. Yet when their observance risks the fragile thread of human life, even these eternal truths bow, if only momentarily, to protect that life. This reverence for life has echoed far beyond the confines of Jewish philosophy. It has permeated the global consciousness, embedding itself in the core reason governments exist, the preservation of human life. As the U.S. Declaration of Independence boldly declares, the primary purpose of a government is to secure its citizens' right to life. This is the bedrock upon which all other rights rest. Now let us turn our gaze toward the land of Israel, a land that has been soaked in the struggles and triumphs of generations. It has been more than 57 years since the Six-Day War, and despite the interventions and efforts of the world's great powers, peace remains elusive, hovering like a mirage on the horizon. If there is to be any real progress, if we are to cease this endless cycle of survival, merely treading water, it is crucial to confront the issue at the core. We must strip away the noise and distractions and ask the question that lies at the heart of Israel's very existence. What is the path that will safeguard Jewish lives, and for that matter Arab lives, with the greatest care and certainty? It must be said clearly, Jewish lives come first. Yes, all human beings are created in the divine image, each life a unique reflection of GD's presence in the world. Every soul is sacred, every heartbeat precious. Yet Torah teaches us to prioritize Jewish life. And in the aftermath of a century where the world stood silent, as 1/3 of our people were systematically erased from the earth, this priority requires no further justification. We have learned a lesson etched into the depths of our collective memory. If we do not fiercely protect ourselves, no one will. For many, especially those who live in lands distant from the daily tragedies of terror and violence, the loss of life becomes an abstraction, a mere number in the evening news. 3 of ours were killed, but 4 of theirs, so we won. This cold calculation is not only devoid of humanity, but utterly misses the point. The question is not who killed more, but how can we stop the killing altogether? As we delve deeper into the complexities of the Arab-Israeli conflict in the pages that follow, one principle will guide us above all else: the preservation of life. This must remain the highest aim, the unwavering standard by which every action is measured. What risks can you be willing to take? There is a fierce temptation to rush toward resolution, especially when grappling with matters of survival, like the burning desire for peace. The urgency of this yearning can grow to such intensity that it drowns out the quiet call of caution, clouding one's clarity. But the instinct to achieve immediate results, to sign a deal and declare peace, should never eclipse the towering importance of what is truly at stake. If peace is to endure longer than the ink drying on the parchment, it must satisfy the very core of what we seek. What is it that Israel needs from peace? It boils down to 2 critical pillars: security from military attack by the neighboring Arab nations, safety for its citizens, ensuring their lives remain untouched by the relentless hand of terror. These pillars are not abstract ideals. They are questions that lie within the realm of military strategy, crafted in the harsh forge of experience. It is only logical, then, that the voices of military experts should rise above the clamor when charting the course of any negotiation. Consider an analogy. When life hangs in the balance and the delicate Sabbath laws are brought into question, it is not the opinion of any layperson that sways the decision. It is the expert, the doctor skilled in that specific ailment, who commands the authority. You consult a cardiologist for the heart, not a dermatologist. The same is true here. When Israel's heart, the heart of its survival, is at risk, only the expertise of military minds, those who have studied the intricacies of defense, should dictate the contours of any peace plan. And when these military experts speak, their words strike with a clarity that cannot be ignored. They assert that Israel must retain the territories captured in the Six-Day War, and the reasons are glaring. Take the Golan Heights, a stark landscape of strategic dominance. From its towering peaks, one can gaze over the lush valleys of the Galilee below. Missiles, artillery, any weaponry stationed in the Golan could rain devastation upon northern Israel's villages, military outposts, and bustling civilian hubs. Even in this modern era of technological warfare, the primal truth remains. To fight uphill is a Herculean challenge, one that could cripple an Israeli defense. Should Syrian forces stand atop the Golan and descend upon Israel, it would place the country in a vulnerable, nearly impossible position to reverse. And then there is Judea and Samaria, the rugged highlands that cast their shadow over the slim waste of Israel's coastal cities. From these heights, an enemy could slice through Israel like a knife through silk, severing the country in two. The infamous pre-67 borders have been likened to the borders of Auschwitz, and with good reason. Even without the deployment of an army, terrorists perched on these hills with rockets could grind Israel's military machine to a halt and lay waste to civilian lives with ease. The hills would become a launch pad for chaos, their slopes echoing with the shrieks of fear and panic. While warfare has evolved, some truths remain immutable. Strategic depth, the space between the enemy and your heartland, still matters. The Gulf War was a testament to this. Despite an endless barrage of bombs and missiles, the Iraqis stood defiant until ground troops moved in. Air superiority alone could not win the war. Moreover, because of the sheer space Iraq had, Saddam Hussein's regime weathered the storm of defeat. It is the boots on the ground that define victory, and without the buffer of those lands, Israel's heart is exposed. The lands of the Six-Day War are not just a buffer against war. They are a shield against terror. It is far easier to confront a threat when you control the territory from which it emanates. Israeli forces can collect vital intelligence, move swiftly to counter threats, and prevent the breeding of terror cells. The stark reality is this: without control of these territories, terrorists can slip away into the embrace of sympathetic towns and cities, hidden within a web of protection beyond Israel's reach. These are not just hypothetical fears. Today, terrorists often find safe harbor within the Palestinian autonomy, secure from Israeli retaliation. Their hands drip with blood, yet they walk freely, shielded by a community that celebrates their crimes. This is why military experts, when consulted, stand in resolute opposition to any suggestion of returning these lands. The defense of Israel depends on holding them. Strikingly, even experts from foreign nations, whose soldiers have never known the existential threats facing Israel, are taken aback by the very notion of making such concessions. And yet, the push for these concessions comes not from the battlefield, but from the political arena. Why? Why are politicians, some with military backgrounds themselves, willing to entertain such dangerous risks? It is the intoxicating allure of peace, the hope that once peace is declared, the specter of war will forever fade into the background. They believe that once a treaty is signed, security will no longer be the paramount concern. But this belief is nothing more than a dream. Ask any of these politicians what must be done to ensure security alone, and they will all say the same. These lands must not be given back. Yet they still claim they are willing to risk it all in the pursuit of peace. Risk. This word should send shivers down the spine when life and death hang in the balance. How can the lives of millions be gambled away on the flimsy hope that tomorrow will be different from today? The future is veiled in uncertainty. Arab regimes are dictatorships, prone to violent swings of power, their stability as fragile as a flickering flame. Even if an Arab leader were to pledge peace, how long could that promise hold? What would happen if a coup toppled him? Would his successor honor the agreement? In a heartbeat, Israel could find itself face to face with an emboldened enemy now closer than ever before, ready to strike. And if this risk is too great when full peace is offered, how much more so when the peace being discussed is a cold, distant one, barely able to stand in the public eye? Peace today may seem real, but tomorrow it could crumble to dust. Weaponry is becoming deadlier by the hour. What seems a minor risk today could explode into a catastrophic one tomorrow. Jewish law is clear. We must not endanger our lives or those of others, even if there is a chance that doing so could save another life. On the contrary, we must do everything possible to avoid even the slightest hint of danger. A single concession invites chaos. This isn't about love for the land, though the land is beloved. Nor is it just about its holiness, though it is sacred. This is about life itself, the blood and breath of millions. Concessions are not just tactical mistakes, they are risks with the lives of an entire nation. When life is at stake, nothing is worth gambling for the sake of diplomatic praise. Peace must be earned, not assumed, and security can never be compromised, not even for the illusion of peace. Protecting lives means preparing for the worst, not hoping for the best. The Code of Jewish law commands that if an enemy approaches a border city, even just to steal straw, the people must rise, fight, and even desecrate the Sabbath. Why? Because once the border is breached, the entire land is at risk. This is Israel's reality now. Every inch of land is like a city on the border. Surrendering any part opens the door to future attacks. Jewish leaders cry out, "Not 1 inch." This isn't about love of the land. It's about life itself. Unyielding ground. The cost of trading land for peace. The proposition of exchanging land for peace is not only unprecedented, it defies the very essence of survival. When, in the history of nations, has a land fought for in defense been surrendered back to those who sought to destroy it? The blood of its defenders, the sweat of its people, the breath of life itself poured into the soil. How can that be undone by mere signatures on a paper? And what has history shown us? Has yielding ever led to peace? No. Every concession has whispered not of strength, but of fragility, the cracks of insecurity laid bare for all to see. The Arabs have sensed this, tasted it, and each gesture of retreat has ignited a new hunger, a deeper thirst. Each step backward only emboldens the next demand. Each compromise begets a louder cry for more, more, always more. A pattern, unshakable, has emerged, demands that echo like storms in the distance, growing closer with each faint reply. We concede, afraid to lose the fragile tether of dialogue, and soon, like the inevitable pull of a tide, they return with heavier hands, sharper words, Their logic is cruel in its simplicity. Once we've given in, once we've shown that even the sanctity of our borders is up for negotiation, how can we stop? Where do we draw the line? If the defense of life itself is not enough to say no, then what is? This is where we stand. We cannot merely react, shifting like reeds in the wind of their demands. We must stand rooted in our own truths, grounded in what is beyond negotiation. There are things, sacred and untouchable, that do not belong on the bargaining table. Not out of sentiment, not out of pride, but out of the raw, undeniable truth. One does not gamble with lives. One does not place security on the altar of diplomacy. Some things, born from the very core of existence, are beyond risk, beyond debate. It is time to stop swaying in the storm and carve our place in stone. The Golan Gamble. The peril of trading land for illusions of peace. The notion of trading land for peace is not only perilous, it tears at the fabric of reason itself. Look at the Golan Heights, a fortress of stone and wind, where Israeli artillery casts its unblinking gaze upon Damascus. Every whisper of wind through the valleys hums with the knowledge of power, the unspoken threat that keeps the fires of war at bay. Since 1974, despite Syria's venomous declarations, despite their involvement in Lebanon, not a single shot has dared cross that threshold. Why? Because the very earth beneath the Golan trembles under the weight of Israeli guns pointed directly at the Syrian heart. It is a reality as stark as the cliffs that cut across the horizon, the terrain a vast open expanse where tanks move like shadows and infantry flows like rivers. In the face of such overwhelming force, any Syrian leader, any man who values breath in his lungs, must pause, must feel the cold weight of mortality pressing against his thoughts. One misstep, one trigger pulled, and the ground would shake beneath his very feet. The Golan, then, is not just land. It is a shield, a pulse of deterrence that keeps the blood of conflict from spilling once more. Now imagine, for a breathless moment, the reversal of this truth. The Golan surrendered, its craggy heights now crowned with Syrian artillery, pointed down upon Israel's cities, its villages, its people. The guns of Israel silenced, Damascus no longer feeling the weight of potential devastation. What then? Would the quiet still hold, or would the drums of war, long muted, thunder back to life? If the cold grip of fear were loosened, if the sword of deterrence were laid down, would war become a shadow closer on the horizon? To give away land for peace is to trade not just stone and soil, but the very positions that secure survival, for nothing more than ink on paper. A treaty, a fragile promise scrawled in the language of diplomacy. What worth does it hold in a land where promises crumble like dust? The Arabs time and again have shattered every accord, each agreement with Israel breaking apart like glass under pressure. Even among themselves, their pacts are fleeting, their words mere vapor dissipating in the heat of conflict. So what value, then, is there in such a trade? What logic can endure in a bargain where lives are weighed against the frailest of assurances? The Golan stands as more than a boundary. It is the pulse of a nation's defense, a reality too deep to be undone by empty promises. To surrender it is to sever the very lifeline that holds chaos at bay, to strip away the core of security and offer it to the winds of chance. What remains, then, but vulnerability? Do the Arabs really want peace? In the theater of geopolitics, where illusion often cloaks reality, the true essence of peace in the Arab world remains obscured by shadows of deeper conflict. The rhetoric of peace, as articulated in their internal dialogues, is frequently revealed to be but a veneer, a strategy cloaked in the language of war. A cursory glance at the Arab press and media reveals an unbroken stream of disdain. From the highest echelons of power to the most common citizen, the pervasive attitude towards Israel is one of deep-seated animosity and contempt. This is not a superficial tension, but a profound current of hostility, a chasm that no mere diplomatic gesture has bridged. In this landscape, true coexistence remains a distant mirage, obscured by the storm clouds of entrenched hatred and societal indoctrination. Israel has perpetually been ensnared by the clamor of external judgments, placing the gaze of other nations above its own needs. It echoes the ancient lament of the scouts sent by Moses, who saw themselves as grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in theirs. When a nation views itself as fragile, it invites aggression. True strength, untainted by boastfulness, comes from a firm self-respect and prioritization of its own security and growth. Yisroel must fiercely protect its divine inheritance. Any concession to Arab terrorism, however small, endangers the sacred trust and puts everything at risk.